Hey everyone, welcome to Live in Pieces. I'm your host, Ruth. So, today's episode, we are going to be diving into attachment styles. I'm obsessed with this attachment theory. Psychology in general, it's such an interesting topic to me because the mind is a fascinating thing. It's a powerful tool that we can use to help us get our desires, help us experience the life that we want, help us do everything. So I think understanding our mind is key to understanding why we do the things that we do. And if there's something that we do that we don't like and that we want to change, we can understand where it came from and begin to look at how we can change that thing. So yeah, the topic for today is attachment styles and attachment theory and the whole nine. Understanding your attachment style is key because a lot of the ways we show up in relationships, usually the attachment theory is for romantic relationships, but I personally think that it can be looked at for platonic relationship as well. So a lot of the ways that we show up in these type of relationships tend to be based on our attachment styles, and your attachment style can actually change because it's not a personality thing, but it's more a behavioral thing. So it can fluctuate. But you do tend to have a main one that you may show up as constantly in, like let's say like 8 to 9 times out of 10 in a relationship, you may show up as this attachment style. Um, but then there are the occasional times where you can fluctuate into other ones. This is until you do something about it, by the way. So if you don't do something about it, then this is the way you would just be constantly. So I also think that how invested you are in the relationship also depends on how you fluctuate. So if you're not really invested in a relationship, you may end up showing up as one type of attachment style. But if you're really, 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 really invested, like for some reason, this person, you guys have a connection and it just brings out this behavioral pattern, this attachment, this style within you. So that can happen as well. And as we know, like awareness is key. If you want to change something or make something better, you first have to be aware. And if you're not aware, how do you know if this thing needs changing? So by becoming aware, you can understand why it is that you do what it is that you do, as I mentioned, and then you can then decide whether or not it is that you want to change it, make it better, develop it, adapt it, all that type of beautiful stuff, right? So this episode essentially is bringing awareness to you, is kind of introducing you to attachment styles and attachment theory if you've never heard about it. If you have, then yeah, you're just going to be hearing some information that you've probably heard before. So if this is new to you, buckle up because we are about to dive into attachment theory and the attachment styles. So, a little backstory behind attachment styles. The concept was developed around the 1950s and it was called attachment theory. Essentially, experiment was done to see how infants behave when they are separated from their parents. And of course, there's more to it. You can dive in and look more about that experiment. But the cliff note is that depending on how the infants responded when the parents arrived, like when they were reunited with their parents, would depend on the category that they fall into. Then of course they would then take that attachment into their adult relationship. So if you are someone that is trying to understand your attachment style and the type of attachment that you have, you would have to go back into the past, like go back into your childhood and kind of see how you responded around your caregivers, guardians, parents, those people that are around you, how they treated you, how you responded back to them. Of course, this might be difficult because you're a child, you're young, so you'd really have to do some digging and some, you know, thoughts and thinking. But again, there are many, many practitioners out there, therapists, people that can help you if you need that guidance and that help in trying to understand your past and why it is that you are the person that you are today. So there are three attachment styles, however, that first, started, but then eventually they introduced a fourth one. So I'm going to be talking about the 4 different attachment styles today. So the first one is the secure attachment. This is the attachment that everybody should aim to be in. But of course, if you're not there, then don't stress. Like I said, sometimes we fluctuate. So maybe sometimes you may fluctuate into being a secure attachment and then you may fluctuate out of it. And if you are a secure attachment, that's amazing. But again, you may be someone that can fluctuate into the other attachments and then fluctuate back into it. But like I mentioned, 8 to 9 times out of 10, this is usually the attachment that you will show up as. So this attachment fosters healthy relationships where there's healthy communication, healthy boundaries, healthy conflict resolution, healthy everything. And I personally think that if you have this attachment styles, you know how to regulate your emotions a lot easier. You can regulate it easily. And if you're upset about something, you don't let it get the best of you, but you know how to fix that thing, or how to ask for help, or how to ask for whatever it is that you want in a relationship. You just know how to show up in a particular way that can make it known that, hey, I need this, this, and this. And whatever it is. And so you kind of just know how to, communicate with your partner, right? And so with the secure attachment, these people feel secure. It's in the name, secure. And they are connected to their partners without always having to be around them all the time. Essentially, they don't need constant reassurance, nor are they constantly distant. It's a healthy balance. And there's that word again. I did tell you it was going to show up a lot. So this attachment fosters deep, emotional, healthy connections. And like I said, this is where we want to be. Because this attachment, is great, right? This is how we want to show up. And so, the next attachment style is the anxious attachment, which can also be referred to as anxious insecure, anxious preoccupied, anxious resistant. But essentially, it's anxious. So if you just want something simple, just think anxious. Individuals with this attachment style tend to have less secure bonds with their partners, and unlike the secure attachment, they tend to seek constant reassurance. So they can be desperate for love and feel like they need someone to complete them. They can be clingy, demanding, jealous, and they just want their partner to be around them all the time. So these individuals may struggle to regulate their emotions. And on one hand, they may cognitively know that their partner is busy and they can't give them the attention that they require. However, chemically, emotionally, they are in a state of distress and they need the presence of their partner to feel stable and to feel secure. I kind of like to think of it as like, the secure attachment. I think of it as like the sun. It powers itself, right? The sun is just the sun. It gives light unto others. It doesn't, need you to be present for it to still shine. The sun will always shine no matter the weather or whatever it is. It is just what it is. It's who the sun is, right? And so that's like the secure attachment style. They just are themselves. But of course, we're not fully the sun. Like I said, you can fluctuate into other things, but more time you behave like that. You are just who you are. And then I think of the other 3 attachment styles, especially the anxious one, as like a dying battery that constantly needs a top up, that constantly needs, the sun's power, right? It needs that juice to stay alive, to be present, to, do you know what I mean? So that's kind of like how I think of the anxious attachment. It's like it constantly needs that reassurance. It doesn't know how to power itself. It doesn't know that it can power itself. It doesn't know that it's a rechargeable battery. It just thinks that it's a, dying battery. Once it's dead. Or, if you can do something to it, great, to keep it alive. Yeah, we're talking about batteries. But that's essentially kind of like how I think about it, to kind of understand, the theories. So I hope that kind of helped. And if it didn't, well, yeah. Not much we could do now. So yeah, moving on to the third attachment. The third one is the avoidant attachment. However, it can be referred to as dismissive avoidant or anxious avoidant. Um, and individuals with this attachment generally keep their distance from their partners. So it's basically the opposite of anxious. Wow, who knew? Um, they may feel that they don't need human connection to survive or to thrive, and they insist on maintaining their own independence, even when they're with someone. So you may be together physically, but emotionally they're not really there. So these individuals can shut down emotionally, and in certain situations, like a serious argument, they're just not there, right? And they are more likely to call it quits than to want to work on the relationship. An individual with this an individual with the anxious attachment would want to find a way to work it out, but an avoidant would just shut down and pull away from the relationship emotionally and may just say, you know what, I'm done, and just move on to the next person. But yeah, an anxious person would want to just, come on, babe, let's talk about it. What happened? Da, 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 da. You know, they want that. They want that reassurance. They want to feel secure. Whereas an avoidant person is like, I ain't got time for this. Bye. I'm out. Right. So with these two attachments, the anxious attachment tend to be made out as like the victims. Like, you've hurt me. You're not there for me. You abandoned me. You left me. You don't want me. You don't like me. You don't love me. You know, they tend to be like the victims. And then the avoidants are usually viewed as nonchalant, right? They don't really care. Like, I just don't give two flying potatoes, right? I just don't care, right? And so they tend to get a bad rep because it's like, why be in a relationship if you're not going to communicate and express how you feel? You're just coming in with 50%. Like, a relationship is, I need you physically there, but where's the emotional part? You can't just be showing up as a shell and not giving me life or giving me joy, giving me energy, giving me anything. What are we doing, right? And so, because of the way avoidants behave, sometimes they can be compared to as narcissists. Here's the thing though, both styles, you know, the avoidant and the anxious, are hurting. They just hurt differently. Avoidants push people away instead of wanting to be close because they don't want to get hurt. So it's easier for them to put you at an arm's length where they feel safe than to open up and risk you hurting them. So they are hurting just differently. And a key difference between a narcissist and an avoidant is that avoidants generally have low self-esteem and may find it difficult and have difficulty in certain social situations. However, a narcissist seeks out ways to highlight their superiority and in social settings and tend to be highly self-confident. So that's like a key difference between them. So truly, I guess you could say that avoidants, in a way, are also victims. That's what I think anyway, because they've trapped themselves behind an emotional barrier. They feel it's better to be alone emotionally than to connect. So it's like they're physically there, you know, the shell is there, but emotionally they're distant. And to me, that kind of gives a bit of a victim um idea, because it's like they've locked their emotions away. They've suppressed it so low, or they don't even know how to be in tune with it. They don't know how to bring it up to say, this is how I feel or whatnot. So they'd rather just shut down and just avoid the whole situation than to say, this is what you did that hurt me, or this is how I feel, or this is what I want. And I think that's really sad in a way. But again, because of how nonchalant they appear, they get the bad rep. They're just like, you know, people just don't like them because you're just like, what do you want? Just tell me what you want. And the void is just like, I don't know. Or maybe they do know, but they don't want to express it. Right? So it could be problematic. It could be a pain. It's annoying, is what it is. Right? Um, And that's kind of why I think that they're also victims. I think all of the three are in a way are victims, because it's like um they emotionally they don't know how to regulate themselves. So it's like they don't know how to stand firm or be strong, you know. And maybe some time to time they might do, but then other most times they struggle with it. So yeah, that's kind of like, anxious and avoidant. I hope that explanation makes sense so far. I hope you're sticking with me and you get what it is that I'm talking about. But yeah, moving on to the final attachment style. This attachment style is basically a combination of the avoidant and the anxious one. So the second and the third one that I just talked about. Um, and I like to think of it, I like to call it the anxious avoidant, but of course we've already had that for the third one. Um, so we can't really say it's the same thing. But that's how I think about it in my head, because it just makes sense. However, the name you may hear it commonly referred to would be fearful avoidant or disorganized. And so individuals with this attachment tend to avoid their emotions because they get overwhelmed by it. So you can see that that's like the anxious and the avoidant mixing in. They avoid it, but they still have the emotions. They're still in tune with their emotions. It's just too much emotions. And so because it's too much, they shut down as well. But they shut down because they're like, what am I doing with this? I don't know what I'm doing, right? They're overwhelmed. And they fear the fearful part. They fear getting hurt by their partner. And they can sometimes, just have this mood swings. It can be abrupt changes, and they don't know what they're doing because emotionally, right? It's just they're all over the place. It's like a bum site, right? It's just crazy out there. And it's like they want to be close to their partners, but in the same breath, they're scared of getting close as they don't want to get hurt. Isn't that so twisted? They want to be close, but they're so scared of getting hurt that they pull away. So they show signs of being anxious and avoidant, because once they get overwhelmed, they may shut down entirely, displaying that avoidant tendencies and avoidant behaviors. And usually with these individuals, it is hard to predict their patterns and their behaviors, because one minute, again, they want closeness, and then the next minute, they want space. So being with this person is like being on a roller coaster. It's many ups and downs. So you better buckle up. Buckle up, because you're about to go for a ride if you're with this person. So yeah, these types of attachment, they will, apologize for being emotionally distant, which shows that they have some sense of level emotional awareness. But at the same time, they can't stop being distant. It's like they've literally pulled the short straw, because honestly, having this attachment can confuse the heck out of someone. You know, they they want to be close, but they can't help but pull away. They come in, they say, "I'm so sorry. I've just been going through some stuff. I just whatever it is, they like this relationship. They're invested, but at the same time, because maybe they've been hurt in the past, or that's when you're going back into their childhood, things like that. Those things now start to have a play at them, and then they're like, oh, I can't do this, and then they pull away. Again, they also get the bad rep because of the avoidant tendencies. I think they might even get it worse a little bit, because it's just like, you're confusing me. What is it that you want? At least an avoidant is going to pull away. You want to be close to me, and then you're pulling away. Can you just tell me what it is that you want? Make it clear for me. Like, how can you just, you're here one minute, calling me, texting me, we're having a great time, everything's great, everything's Gucci, but then I don't hear from you. I don't hear from you for like weeks on end. And then it's like you're telling me that you don't want me anymore. So now I'm confused, because I thought we were good, and you're saying that we're good, but your actions and your behavior is showing me something else. So which is it? Right? It's tough. It's tough out there. And so you can see that with these three attachments, they struggle to regulate their emotions. And so they act out in certain ways because of it, right? They don't mean to, but chemically, emotionally, they just find it so hard to be in that secure alignment, that secure way. And yeah, so from this short description I've just given you about all three, or all four really, you may have an idea which attachment you fall into, if it's secure, anxious, avoidant, or anxious avoidant, but fearful. We just call it that. And so if you don't know though, and you're still struggling, or you feel like you kind of fluctuate between all of them, like I said, you might have all of them, but depending on the relationship, it can show up differently. Then there are many tests online that you can just like type in, like just literally type in like attachment styles or attachment theory test, and something will pop up and you'll be able to just figure out which one you are. Or if you still don't know, speak to someone that can help you, like a therapist, your doctor, somebody, you know what I mean? That type of stuff. Someone in the medical field. And they can kind of help you know what you are, right? So now that I've given you the attachment styles, what do we do next? Well, if you are a secure attachment, that's amazing. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything though, because we can all still improve, get better, advance, evolve, expand, grow, all that type of beautiful things. However, it just means that you might have less work to do than someone who has the other three. They may have more work to do. And again, from the other three, if you have the other three, it's about looking into your past, because the attachment theory came from the idea of how infants responded to their parents when they left them and when they reunited with them. So how did they behave, right? And so you would have to like kind of look into your past, think about your childhood, think about your parents, your caregivers, or whoever it was that was taking care of you. And from there, you can kind of understand how it is that you can start healing from those things. And like I mentioned, and I keep mentioning, there are many, many practitioners out there, therapists, spiritual healers, guides, all those type of people that can work with you one-on-one and help you find the root cause of where the attachment that you have came from. And they can also help you with what healing that you need to do in order to move out of those three and move into the secure. And one thing I just want to say is that change won't happen overnight, but by you taking the first step, you will be close to the change you want to see. Let me repeat that. Change won't happen overnight, but by taking the first step, you will be closer to the change that you want to see. So if you want to change, if you want to be better, then you have to take that first step. And you have to give yourself grace, because I think that we can be too harsh on ourselves, where it's like we just expect to just get it right and to just have it all figured out and to just, snap our fingers and that's it. We're better now, we're changed. No, it doesn't work like that. Especially if this is something from childhood. This is a root. This is your foundation. This is how you were made, essentially, right? You have to first then dig deep into that foundation and build it up again, or fix the cracks that show up in that foundation before you can then move on with your life. Yeah. So that's kind of like the introduction into attachment theory and attachment styles. There's definitely so much more that we can talk about when it comes to attachment theory. But I just wanted to give you an introduction into it. There's a plethora of information out there. But I hope that this episode has brought awareness to it, and you can just go out there and learn a lot more. Again, I am fascinated by attachment theory and attachment styles and just psychology in general, and the mind and how it works, and the brain and chemicals and emotions and all these synapses like firing together, neurons, all that type of stuff. I am so intrigued by it because it's just it's a great thing to know. It's a great thing to understand who you are, because when you understand who you are, you understand why it is that you do the things that you do. If you don't know who you are, or if you don't know what you want to change, how can you change it? Right? So, yeah, there's not really much else to say right now, but there is more on the topic. Um, Honestly, though. But if you're looking for first steps, I would definitely say try and figure out which attachment you are. If you could do it by yourself, amazing. You have all the information inside of you. Your body knows everything that you need to know. But of course, if you are struggling a little bit, then look for that external source, that external help. Go online, talk to someone, find help, and you can then figure out yourself. That will be the first step, because again, when you're now aware of it, you would then know what to do next. Then the second step is either work with someone if you have the ability to and you can. But if for whatever reason you can't work with anybody and it's just you by yourself, then journal. Start to write things down. Start to meditate and like think about your childhood. That's why the first thing that you can do from the ages of like 0 to 7, is when they say that, we are built, that the foundation of a child is essentially created. I kind of like to think it goes up to 14. That's my personal opinion. But between the ages of 0 to 7, that's kind of how we are formed, and the things that we then do in the future ends up, coming along, and the way that we show up essentially in adulthood is because of what happened to us and how we grew up between the ages of 0 to 7. So start to think about your childhood and start to think about your early years and what you were doing, where you were, your environment, how other people around you were showing up, how other people were treating you. And then from there, you can then start to just understand yourself. It's about understanding yourself. And so, yeah, like, I really hope this has been helpful to you. Right? Attachment styles is so great. And like I said as well, yes, it's for romantic relationships, but again, it can affect your platonic friendships as well. For example, let's say you are an anxious person and you want that emotional connection from your partner, but they're not able to give it to you at that time. You may end up going to a friend or a family or someone else to give you help you emotionally regulate, your daily dose of security, secureness. They give you that, and what they give you will be great, but of course it's like, that where you really want it from is that romantic partner. And yeah, and I think what it is that we need to learn to be able to be secure, because then it means that we're not necessarily needing these relationships to fulfill us. These relationships are supposed to be a bonus, like an add-on, the cherry on the cake and whatnot, instead of actually being the life source, the thing that fuels us up. That's where it becomes detrimental, because when that person isn't there to give us what it is that we want, we are left by a thread. We're left hanging. We're left loose. We're left, worried, scared, anxious, all that type of stuff. So it's about learning to emotionally regulate ourselves. And of course, again, it's going to take time. But like I keep mentioning a million times, having that awareness is going to be the first step in helping you move into that and being able to emotionally regulate yourself. And again, there will be times where you can do it sometimes and you're great and it's awesome, and there'll be other times where you may struggle a little bit with it, but with time you can get there. And if you're an avoidant as well, it's the same thing. It's about learning to be in tune with your emotions, sitting down with yourself, letting those emotions in. And it might be hard at first because you're so used to shutting it out, you're so used to just avoiding it, you're so used to just, it's not even there to you, I ain't see nothing, I ain't hear nothing, means it's not there. But that's not the case. It is still there. Just because you're not in tune with it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's still very much present. It's just hidden under a ton of bricks that you've placed. So it's going to take time, and you first have to remove those layers, remove those bricks, and learn to be in tune with in tune with your emotions, so that when you're in relationships and you're with people, you know how to healthily ask for what it is that you want. And then again, if you are if you are my fearful anxious type, my fearful disorganized people, um God bless you. No, I'm just joking. Like, no, it's the same thing. It's about understanding yourself. You got double whammy here. You got to be able to um regulate your emotions, to be able to know that this person isn't going to hurt you. It usually stems from a fear of, this person is going to abandon me, hurt me, disrespect me, leave me, not want me, all that type of stuff, betray me, just different things, right? And so it's about being secure in yourself, that even if they were to do those things, it doesn't take away from who you are. You are still amazing. You are still special. You are still wonderful. You are still, just beautifully made, all that type of stuff. And this person, them coming into your life is just an add-on. They aren't everything. Don't make them out to be everything. But at the same time, don't get overwhelmed by it, because then you avoid them entirely. And it's like, you want to be close to them, but you don't know how to do that because you're scared. And so when you can remove that fear, and you can begin to regulate yourself and know that, okay, I'm okay, then you can then show up in a relationship where you're secure. And if you're secure, y'all are doing a great job. That's amazing. That's awesome. Keep being secure. Keep being the type of people that show up in relationships and essentially help other people become secure, because when you're with a secure person, the secureness may rub off on you, and it may help you. It's probably not as straightforward as that, but it can help a little bit. But yeah, that's all I have got time for today. I really hope that I have given you an insight into this and that it has been helpful. If it has, then definitely let me know. And if it has as well, share it with someone so it can be helpful and beneficial to them. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And I really appreciate, you listening to this podcast. So guys, I've been Ruth, and this has been Living Pieces. Remember, living pieces together creating a masterpiece, or the masterpiece. So until I hear from you, see you, do something, create another podcast, create another episode. Until we meet again, let me say that. Until we meet again, stay blessed, don't stress, and I will catch you after the test. Bye.